Let's talk to Robert Poole, co-founder of the website Strike Map, which charts industrial action across the UK as we try to keep track of everything that's going on. Listen, Robert, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I've had a look at the map. It's full, isn't it, of markers. We're expecting a lot of strikes.
Hi, good morning. Yeah, it's very full. We launched the map a couple of years ago with only a handful of pins on it then, and now I think we've mapped over 950 strikes. And I've just seen an announcement from Dave Ward from the CWU Communication Workers Union, and he said 115,000 postal workers are going on strike, and there's going to be 1,500 picket lines. So I think we're going to need a bigger map.
To coin a phrase, indeed. I don't know how long your website has been going, Robert, but is this the busiest it's ever been?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we launched it in December 2020 because we realised there was no coordinated records out there of strikes happening around the country. And we wanted to catalogue where it was taking place because, I mean, we're hearing about it in the news now. But, since 2020, there have been, up until this point, we had still mapped hundreds of other strikes. It hasn't been hitting the news, but obviously with this summer's, summer of discontent, it's hitting the news more because it's much larger scale. There's more people taking part, and as I just said, the unions are coordinating now, and we're seeing these actions taking place on the same time. So we're seeing this big build-up at the moment.
Are you able to tell us how Kent compares with the rest of the UK on that map? I know we've got Astley Rail strikes, haven't we, this weekend, for example?
Yeah, I mean, what we're seeing is it's widespread throughout the whole country. We're seeing a focus sort of down in obviously in London with a lot of the workers around the transport going on strike, but within the whole country it is fairly widespread, because what we're seeing now is sort of national industries like the postal workers, like BT Openreach in previous weeks, and these are. Telephone exchanges are all over the country. The postal workers are all over the country. The rail are all over the country. So, we're seeing it's really widespread and quite fairly, quite evenly distributed, really.
Yeah, you can see that on the map, actually. I guess that's why it's so useful. It's a visual tool, isn't it, to see at a glance the picture from the country. I mean, you've got a background, haven't you, with an education union. I'm wondering whether you are supportive of the strikes, Robert.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a teacher, and I'm a union rep myself. When I started teaching in 2011, and in my first year of teaching, we went on strike. I mean, previous to that, I wasn't particularly political. I wasn't necessarily, I didn't really understand it. But what that showed me was, we can't rely on Westminster, no matter who's in power, to do these things for us. We've got to stand up for ourselves. We'll be the National Education Union, which is my union, we're balloting for industrial action in the autumn term. And, nobody wants to go on strike. We really don't want to do it. Every teacher I talk to, it's a last resort. We don't want any further disruption to education. We've just come through the pandemic, and we've been working all the way through. And it's same with everyone we talk to. Nobody wants to do this. But, we can't go on like this,
But what would you say to anyone who said, we are in a really difficult situation right now, but the country has to draw together? A lot of the problems are outside the realm of this country. So we could talk about the war in Ukraine, for example, and inflation globally, which means that we have to kind of hunker down and get through it, not cause more disruption and disrupt the economy and children's education further.
Yeah, I completely agree. We're all in it together. We need to all stand together, and that's what trade unions are about. They're about solidarity, and they're about workers standing together and fighting for their rights. Like I say, nobody wants to do this, and it's a very easy solution for these companies to avoid it, and that's to sit down at the table with workers and give them a fair deal. We've seen firefighters being offered, massively below inflation pay rises, which we know in real terms is a pay cut. And, firefighters are dying, and nurses have spent the pandemic and, working all the way through.
We clapped for them, didn't we? we stood out there and showed our support, but yeah.
but yeah, clapping doesn't pay the bills, and we're all seeing, everyone I know is sort of struggling at the moment. Bills are going up, but what we're also seeing going up is profits, and we're seeing the big 6 energy firms making billions in profits, BT making hundreds of millions in profits, and it's time just to sort of say, well, we should be seeing a share of this. It's not it's not us causing the disruption when we go on strike. It's the people at the top who are happy to take pay rises themselves, but also happy to try to cut the ordinary working person's pay terms and conditions. And like I say, this isn't something that's only just happened because of inflation or because of the war in Ukraine or because of the pandemic. This has been an ongoing thing. We've seen a rise in sort of fire and rehire. We've seen, everyone was condemning P&O for bringing agency staff in, and then the government has what used to be illegal, which was to bring in agency workers, have now, scrapped that law to make it legal.
Whether or not, behind the strikes. Yes, indeed. Now, Robert, I realise I'm sort of asking you to be a mouthpiece for all strikers, which isn't perhaps your remit, but I'd like to put this point for you because I'd like to hear what you've got to say. So we were discussing this earlier, and Anna from Elm got in touch and says not everyone can get a pay rise. We're farmers. We've had no wage increase for over 15 years, and there won't be one coming anytime soon, as we just don't get the prices for our crops that we should do. And we still, though, have to pay the prices to run our machinery. Of course, that's more expensive, and planting the seeds, etc., etc. She says there's no simple answer to this, but it comes back to that sort of question about parity. It's not fair for farmers, and they're facing disruption, and they can't get a pay rise.
I think what we need to look at is, there's been this sort of increasing, individual way of looking at things in society. People sort of saying, well, I've not got a pay rise, therefore no one should get a pay rise. And what we need to be seeing is, it's a rising tide lifts all ships. If people, if workers have got more money, then they've got more money to spend more money in the shops. And, there's multiplier effect in the economy as people have got more money. At the moment, who's spending the money? We're cutting back, aren't we? No one's buying anything. So, I'm happy to see, a nurse getting more money, a teacher, a railway worker, a postie, a call centre worker, a bar staff. I'm happy to see people getting a pay rise. I would love to see our farmers treated better. I'd love to see, people in society, and you know what, it would be trade unionists who would be the ones that would be standing up for those farmers. And I think, let's all draw together, like you said earlier. Let's pull together as a country, and let's look after each other. Let's stop sort of trying to. This is what the government are trying to do. They're trying to divide us, and they're trying to play us off against each other, farmers against teachers, against nurses, against railway workers. But what we all need to say is, we are all in this together, and we're not going to take it anymore. Enough is enough, as the campaign that launched this week said.
We've covered a lot of ground, haven't we, Robert? Listen, thank you so much for joining us on the Wake Up Call this morning. Please do keep in touch. And your website is very simple, isn't it? It's strikemap.co.uk. Easy as that, if people want to look it up. Okay, we'll speak to you soon. That's Robert Poole then, co-founder of that website, where you can see all the industrial action across the UK right now. I think it's really instructive, actually. You can see sort of the arrows or the dots on the map, and they are quite widespread.